In antiquity, in the ancient Near East, when a covenant was made between two parties, the making of the covenant included a curse. And the curse was the penalty for failing to keep the covenant. So the curse would be, if I fail to honor this covenant, this vow, etc., may I be, and then the curse you would call upon yourself very often would be the curse of being split into two. We see this famously in a very strange passage in the book of Genesis, where the covenant is made between God and Abraham, who would become Abraham, where animals are taken, and Abraham says to God, how will I know? Where's the evidence? How do I know that you're going to give me an offspring? And God's answer is, take these animals, which is a bit of a weird answer to give to a question, how do I know I'm going to have children? Take these animals. Now, God gives no further instructions to Abraham in that passage. So Abraham takes the animals because he knows what to do with them. God doesn't have to tell him. He splits them in half and he lays the pieces aside. And at that point, the covenant would be made by God and Avram walking between the pieces together, uttering the curse upon themselves, may I be split just as these animals if I break the covenant. But God does not permit Avram to walk through the pieces with him. He compels a deep sleep to come upon him, and God's presence, symbolized by a burning lamp, passes through on his own. This tells us that the covenant was not actually between two equal parties. It tells us that Avram was incapable of keeping his side of the bargain. He could not fulfill the covenant. It tells us that God in his sovereignty precludes human participation in the covenant, and God actually does it on his own. So it's a very abnormal covenant. The relationship between God and man is not an equal one. Now, the punishment for failing to keep the covenant is being split in half. Now, when we skip forward to what we know as the Last Supper, a Passover meal that Jesus and his disciples are observing, Jesus takes the bread and he breaks it in half. And he says, take, eat, this is my body. Essentially, the body being broken into two. Now, that's weird, because the Bible says not a bone in his body would be broken. So we know for a fact that Jesus' body was not broken at the crucifixion, and yet Jesus, when he speaks about his death, speaks about it being broken in half. And he's doing that because he's adopting covenant terminology. He's saying that when I die, I'm not dying because I've broken Rome's law. I'm not dying because I've broken Jewish law. I'm dying because the punishment for the covenant is being inflicted upon me. My body is symbolically broken in half through the crucifixion. So why did Jesus die? Jesus died to take upon himself our punishment for failing to maintain a right relationship with God. So the necessity of the death of Christ is established by our very nature. As humans, we are incapable of being what is necessary to be in a right relationship with God. Even if we do everything we can to be as good as possible, we still have that inclination within us towards something wrong. And it's that very nature of our humanity which needed remedy.